The rivalry, when stardom meets its shadow. Fame, for all its glitter, is rarely a solo journey. Behind every breakout star, there's someone else climbing just as fast, someone who burns just as brightly, someone who turns a spotlight into a battlefield. For Dylan, that someone was Adrian, an equally magnetic rising star who would become his fiercest rival. Their story wasn't just about fame. It was about envy, love, betrayal, and the eventual reckoning that only collaboration could bring. Dylan's first encounter with Adrian came in an audition for a new romantic drama series. The room was buzzing with tension as young actors rehearsed lines and fixed their hair nervously in the mirrors. Dylan, though nervous himself, carried the quiet confidence of someone who had already tasted success. When Adrian walked in, the atmosphere shifted. Tall, with sharp features and an aura of unshakable self-assurance, Adrian greeted the casting director with a grin that felt both charming and calculated. Dylan noticed how everyone's eyes followed him, how his presence seemed to command the room. They auditioned back-to-back. Dylan poured emotion into his performance, channeling vulnerability that brought a hush over the panel. Adrian, however, countered with raw charisma, delivering the same lines with such conviction that the room erupted into applause. That day, Dylan realized he wasn't the only rising star. Adrian was not just competition. He was a threat. Both Dylan and Adrian landed roles in different dramas that premiered around the same time. Dylan's show gained popularity for its heartfelt storytelling, while Adrian shot to instant fame due to his fiery, rebellious character. Fans split into two camps, hashtag Team Dylan and hashtag Team Adrian, fueling a rivalry that extended far beyond the actors themselves. Every award ceremony turned into a silent duel. When Dylan won Best New Actor, Adrian clapped politely, but his eyes remained cold. When Adrian later took home the Popular Star Award, Dylan forced a smile, though deep down, envy burned. The media fed on their rivalry. Tabloids ran headlines like Dylan versus Adrian, who's the real King of Hearts, and 2 stars, 1 throne. Interviews always circled back to comparisons. Dylan hated how reporters would casually mention Adrian's name during his own press events, but he pretended it didn't bother him. As if career competition wasn't enough, love soon entered the battlefield. During the filming of a high-profile movie, Dylan met Alara, a talented actress known for her grace and intelligence. Their chemistry was undeniable, both on-screen and off. They were spotted laughing together during breaks, sharing quiet moments after shoots. Fans quickly dubbed them the industry's golden couple in the making. But just as Dylan was mustering the courage to confess his feelings, rumors broke that Alara had been seen dining with Adrian. Paparazzi photos of the two walking side by side ignited chaos online. Dylan's heart sank when Alara confirmed she was, in fact, seeing Adrian. It was more than just heartbreak. It was betrayal. Adrian had taken the one person Dylan had begun to dream about, the one person who seemed to understand him beyond the glitz of fame. From then on, their rivalry wasn't just professional. It was deeply personal. Part 4. The War Years. For years, Dylan and Adrian's careers ran in parallel like 2 racing trains, each trying to outpace the other. When Dylan starred in a melodrama that broke records, Adrian responded with blockbuster action film. When Adrian signed a global brand endorsement, Dylan landed a coveted international modeling gig. Backstage at award shows, they avoided each other, exchanging cold nods at best. Co-stars often whisper about the tension whenever their names came up in the same conversation. Directors tread carefully, aware that casting both in the same project would be like striking a match near gasoline. The love rivalry lingered as well. Though Alara and Adrian's relationship eventually ended, Dylan never pursued her afterward. The wound was too deep, and in truth, he had grown wary of competing for anything connected to Adrian. The world saw them as rivals, but behind the cameras, Dylan was exhausted. The constant comparisons, the invisible measuring stick of Adrian's achievements, weighed on him. It wasn't just competition anymore. It felt like a shadow he couldn't escape. The turning point came unexpectedly. A celebrated director announced a new film, one destined to be a masterpiece. The catch? He wanted both Dylan and Adrian in leading roles, 2 opposing brothers torn apart by fate. Dylan's first instinct was to refuse. He couldn't imagine working alongside Adrian after years of tension, but his manager insisted, "This film will define your career. You can't turn it down. Besides, maybe it's time to face him." Reluctantly, Dylan agreed. From day one on set, the rivalry was palpable. During rehearsals, their exchanges carried a sharpness that went beyond acting. Every line delivered felt like a challenge. Every scene a duel. The crew whispered about the tension, but the director only smiled. "Good," he said. "Use it. Channel it." And surprisingly, it worked. Their animosity translated into electric chemistry on screen. The story of two brothers torn apart by jealousy and pride mirror their real lives so closely that audiences would later describe their performances as painfully authentic. Part 6, Breaking the Mask. As weeks turned into months, something unexpected happened. The long hours of filming, the shared exhaustion, and the raw vulnerability of the script began to break down the walls between Dylan and Adrian. One late night after shooting a particularly emotional scene, Dylan found Adrian sitting alone outside, smoking quietly under the stars. For once, the sharpness in his eyes was gone. "Do you ever get tired?" Adrian asked suddenly. Dylan frowned. "Of what?" "This game. This constant fight to be on top." For a moment, Dylan saw not his rival, but a man just as weary, just as trapped by expectations. "Every day," Dylan admitted, "but I thought you thrived on it." Adrian chuckled bitterly. "I thought you did." That night, for the first time, they spoke honestly about the pressure of fame, the loneliness behind cameras, the fear of fading away. Dylan realized that beneath all the rivalry, Adrian wasn't his enemy. He was his mirror. By the time filming wrapped, Dylan and Adrian's dynamic had shifted. The tension was still there, but it was no longer fueled by hatred. Instead, it was an unspoken respect. When the film premiered, it became an instant sensation. Critics hailed their performances as career-defining. Fans marveled at their chemistry, praising the raw authenticity that made the story unforgettable. Ironically, the film that forced them together ended up uniting them. Offers poured in for joint projects, and while they didn't immediately jump into another collaboration, the ice between them had been broken. Dylan even found himself cheering for Adrian during award season, clapping genuinely when his rival-turned-colleague won Best Actor. Adrian returned the favor when Dylan later took home an international award. It wasn't friendship, not yet, but it was something better than years of silent war. It was understanding. Part 8, The Legacy of Rivalry. Looking back years later, Dylan admitted in an interview that his rivalry with Adrian had shaped him more than he realized. Fame had always promised Dylan glory, but also delivered something he hadn't expected. A mirror image of himself in the form of Adrian, a rival who seemed to haunt every step of his career. The rivalry wasn't just a headline or an award show whisper anymore. It was a fire that burned hotter with each passing year, consuming Dylan in ways even he didn't fully understand. The red carpet duel. It was a crisp winter evening when Dylan first realized how deep the rivalry had sunk into his bones. He arrived at an international film festival draped in a tailored black suit, the kind designed to scream elegance without trying too hard. Flashbulbs popped, fans screamed his name, and for a moment, he felt untouchable. Then Adrian arrived. He stepped out of his sleek car in a white tuxedo with a velvet collar, an outfit bold enough to draw gasps. The crowd shifted, screaming his name with equal intensity. For a brief second, Dylan felt the spotlight slip away, like a warm blanket ripped from his shoulders. They crossed paths at the carpet's midpoint. Cameras clicked furiously as fans chanted both their names. "Looking sharp," Adrian muttered under his breath. His lips curved into a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You too," Dylan replied, though his voice carried a tinge of steel. The photos splashed across headlines the next day. Two kings, one throne. Dylan and Adrian face off at festival. The public devoured every comparison. From their suits to their smiles, away Alara, the leading lady of Dylan's film, lingered just a little too long near Adrian during the after-party. Dylan had thought he was prepared for anything in the industry. Criticism, pressure, relentless work schedules. But nothing prepared him for the storm named Alara. On set, she had a way of making everyone feel at ease. With Dylan, she laughed easily, even off camera, sharing private jokes during takes. One night, during a rain scene, they stayed behind after the crew packed up, sitting on overturned crates as water dripped from the lights. You ever feel like this world is too big for us? Alara asked softly. All the time, Dylan admitted. But then I see someone like you in it, and it feels manageable. Her eyes softened, but before he could say more, the moment ended. Days later, paparazzi photos of Alara with Adrian surface again, this time leaving a jazz bar at midnight. Dylan saw the images online, his chest tightening. The woman he thought he might love was now standing in his rival's orbit. When he confronted her privately, his voice trembled. Why him? Alara looked torn. Dylan, Adrian listens. He makes me feel like I'm not just another actress on a set. I'm sorry. Her words sliced deeper than any critic's review ever could. Dylan realized in that Rivalry wasn't confined to the stage or screen. It had seeped into his most fragile human desires. Despite the emotional storm, Dylan's career soared. He landed lead roles, graced magazine covers, and filled arenas with fans chanting his name. Yet every victory was tainted by the same question. Was Adrian doing better? At award shows, Dylan would force a smile when Adrian's name was called, clapping politely while his chest fell hollow. Behind closed doors, he sometimes stared at trophies lying on his shelves, wondering if they were proof of success or simply reminders of the man he had to outpace. One night, unable to sleep, Dylan flipped on the TV. A late-night show replayed Adrian's recent interview. Adrian smirked, leaning back in his chair. Rival? Maybe. Or maybe he's just chasing me. Dylan turned off the TV, his hands shaking. His reflection in the darkened screen looked less like a star and more like a man unraveling under the weight of competition. The clash on set. Their paths collided again when both were cast in rivaling dramas that aired during the same season. The industry buzzed with anticipation, branding it the ratings war of the decade. During one overlapping press event, the tension boiled over. A reporter, grinning mischievously, asked, So, who's the better actor, Dylan or Adrian? The audience chuckled. Dylan forced a laugh and said, Well, I guess the viewers will decide. Adrian leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Oh, I think they already know. The room erupted in awkward laughter, but Dylan's jaw clenched. He walked off stage afterward, heat rising in his chest. When Adrian caught up to him in the hallway, Dylan turned sharply. You enjoy this, don't you? Watching me squirm. Adrian shrugged. It's not my fault that the spotlight tilts my way. Their glares locked, two storms colliding in silence. Crew members whispered nervously, sensing the rivalry had crossed into dangerous territory. The private breakdown. As months passed, Dylan's exterior remained polished, but the cracks beneath widened. He began spending long nights alone, replaying his failures and near misses. Each article comparing him to Adrian felt like salt on an open wound. One evening, after wrapping up a grueling shoot, Dylan sat in his car in the parking lot. Rain poured against the windshield, but he didn't turn on the engine. He just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, his chest